The latest meme of the most memed person on the internet is this one right here that Ken Rochon made for us. I don't always impact the world, but when I do it at the Business Expert Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise and welcome to the stage the actor who portrays the most interesting man in the world, Mr. Jonathan Goldsmith.
Hey, how you doing? Hi, Clint. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Just have a few questions for you.
Shoot.
I think you should be able to handle it.
Okay.
What do you think is the basic component of being interesting?
Well, I think first you have to be an interested person. If you're not interested in things, you'll never be interested. And you got to read everything. They said be succinct, I'll be succinct.
Who's the most interesting person you've ever met?
President Obama.
Oh.
Yeah.
How come?
I was his guest, his surprise guest at his 50th birthday at Camp David.
Wow.
And that was an incredible experience. You know, regardless of what your politics are, mine happened to lay in that area. But to be in the company of the leader of the free world, it's amazing. It's even amazing that I'm at Harvard. My mother would be so proud.
Tell us about the dinner at Camp David. What was the 50th birthday party of the President of the United States like? What was it? What was the experience?
It was incredible. The whole motif was he was having 10 of his best friends in the world for a private weekend, no wives, a whole weekend of games. He's a very competitive fellow, as you probably know. So he had to have one surprise guest that he didn't know about. And I had met him before and had a very nice rapport. And his photographer, Pete Souza, and Michelle chose me because they knew that he liked me. And I hope he wasn't disappointed. I kept thinking that it was going to be George Clooney, that's who I'm sure he thought it was, but it wasn't. But you asked me about Camp David. It was wonderful. I mean, I was ushered to my cottage, and then I looked at the logbook, and I found out that Sarah Palin had slept in my bed. I got a little uncomfortable. But it was a glorious weekend, and it was a lot of fun, too.
Slept in the same bed as Sarah Palin.
She was not there.
Since you've become a celebrity, have you noticed that there have been any advantages for you in your personal or professional life?
Oh, my goodness, yes, absolutely. As an actor, and I was a known actor, but just among my peers and a few nice old ladies that thought I was a long-lost son that would write in. But I never really had a great deal of recognition. But this incredible campaign, which I am so grateful for, has opened up doors that I never had available to me, like meeting the president. Before this, I met him when he started his campaign. I was asked to be part of a host group up in Burlington at the college, and then got invited to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I met people that I didn't meet. Nick Kristof. Has he been here? Because I want to meet him. And
he wasn't here today.
He wasn't here today?
No.
That's not true, but I want to meet him anyway. But I've had access to all kinds of people, and the most interesting thing about it to me was when my wife and I went to the dinner. You see all of these marvelous celebrities from the world of politics particularly, as well as show business, and they, Chuck Hagel, Wolf Blitzer, Gloria, they wanted my picture. It's amazing. Now I feel very humbled and very, very lucky, and I want to put it to good use. So I spend a lot of time giving back in ways that I can.
Now, when I was considering engaging you for this speaking opportunity, I went to the bank on Hollywood and Vine, Wells Fargo Bank, and right above the bank entrance was a gigantic billboard with your face on it.
Better it should have been on a bill.
Did you put that billboard over my bank to get this gig or not?
No, I didn't. But that's one of the nice things. I mean, the publicity has just become rampant, and just one after another. So it's a great break, and also I get good seats in restaurants.
What's your favorite restaurant?
Where? Well,
In the United States.
In the United States, well, there's a little place called Atchafalaya. It's in Dallas or Houston. There's a few of them. It's Cajun food, and it's fresh and it's incredible.
Awesome. How has this whole experience impacted you as a leader in your life?
Well, it's made me aware of this so-called celebrity, that you have a platform and you can do things with that. You can get attention for it to the things that you believe in. And I've been working since I was 18 on behalf of handicapped and disabled children. And I've been able to do so much more. I just got involved with Make-A-Wish, and I'm going to be doing some PSAs for them. So that's the nicest thing about it. I went to Vietnam calling attention to the situation with unexploded ordnance. And it's unbelievable, the leftovers from the past wars, hundreds of thousands of tons of unexploded ordnance. And we help locate them, and we work with the survivors. So things like that it's given me access to, and I hope I put it to good use. It's a blessing, really.
Really is. You speak about how your friend Fernando Lamas inspired much of your success.
He did.
How do you feel about your friendship with that man and its impact on your life?
Well, I'm very grateful that I had the friendship with him. It changed my life. When I originally got the call, I was sleeping for the commercial. I was sleeping in a campground, no hot water, in the back of my truck. I was involved in a lawsuit. I had left a company that I had built to a huge company, which I hope you'll ask me about. I understand there are a lot of entrepreneurs here. But I was on my lowers. I mean, I was not doing well. And I had this call for the commercial, and all I knew about it was that I would have to end an improvisation with the line, and that's how I arm wrestled Fidel Castro. So I drove down, and I did have a background in improvisation, and I used to read poetry extemporaneously in the village. And I felt quite helpless. I was in the back of my little pickup truck with a shell on the back. There wasn't any hot water in this place, and just across the road was Malibu, where everything that I had ever wanted existed and lived, all of the swells. And I could see the lights in the distance through the window in my camper. And it just reminded me of the difficulty and the struggles that actors go through, not just actors, but specifically actors, in trying to break through these bastions that are so impenetrable, the studios and the studio mentality. And I drove down the coast the next day, and feeling a little angry, a little resentful. I had been a successful journeyman actor. I was never well known, but I had the respect of my peers, and then I quit the business. And I was tired of being told what I was worth. I was too tall. I was even too tall to play with Danny DeVito in something. I had no control over my life whatsoever. And I wanted to take that back, so I left the business. And this was my entree coming back after 10 years. I knew nobody anymore. They didn't know me, out of sight, certainly out of mind in showbiz. And as I was driving down the coast, I felt quite helpless. I got there, and there were like 200 or 300 people lined up. It was literally a cattle call. And I said, what am I going to do? All these people look like Juan Valdez. They all look like they were going to read for the coffee commercial, and then this little Hebrew boy from the Bronx. It didn't seem right, you know. And then I said, I know. My friend Fernando, who was the greatest raconteur, a wonderful, wonderful, charming, debonair bullshit artist. So I said, I will channel my friend and my my dead Uncle Herbie, who was a character, and a few other people. And I was ushered in finally. I really wanted to leave because I said, I'm not right for this role, looking at all these other people. Never assume you're not right for something. Believe me, my world has changed because of that, to say the least. And finally, it was my turn to go in. And I really did want to leave. I was worried that my truck was going to get towed. I had till 4 o'clock or pay a very big fine. And I said, Fernando's my answer. And I put on that little accent of mine. And then the room was empty. The studio was back in New York, really, where they were all sitting, the client, the agency, the director. I was in this empty, huge studio, bigger than this. And I said to myself, damn it, I want them to remember me. Do something different, as in reference to your first question, too. And I reached down and I took a sock off and then put my shoe back on. And they noticed that. And I told them I didn't prefer to talk about it at this time. And then they asked me about, how did I become interested in travel and the mystique of the jungle and all of this stuff. And I says, well, I used to hang around Abercrombie Fitch gunroom when I was a kid. I didn't know. It was a toss-up between being a white hunter and OBGYN. I wasn't sure. And they laughed. So then I kept spinning this yarn, little bits of pieces from Fernando's incredible stories. He bedded every woman in Hollywood but one. And it snowballed from there. And when I left, I called Barbara, my agent, who's now my wife. I said, Barbara, waste of time. My time, their time, don't do this. I had my hopes up. It's silly. Never assume. She said, you're a good actor. They want an improvisational. Anyway, then I'm supposed to be quick. You want me to keep talking?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Then they went on a national hunt, all the major cities for commercials, Atlanta, New York, Dallas, Chicago. And then they didn't find that person. They called me back again. And now I'm gaining this, only 100 people. And almost felt resentful because I knew the dream was going to be taken away from me again. It always was. It is truly the land of ifs, maybes, and onlys. And one crashing disappointment at the other. If we had time, I can tell you stories where so many times I was right near capturing that dream, right on the edge, to have the most asinine reasons for it to fall apart in some cases. Leads in major shows with major stars, they went on and I was left in the dust for whatever the reason. And I didn't want to get my hopes up. Another month went by and they were casting all over South America, Buenos Aires, Mexico City, and I'm thinking, my God. And finally they called me back. And there were only 3 people, 2 besides me. And it was a full dress rehearsal, makeup, everything. And afterwards, the sweat. And the casting director called my wife and he said, Barbara, they're crazy about Jonathan, but they feel they have to go younger. And she, in her own inimitable way, said, how can an interesting person, the most interesting person, be a young man? Good move. Anyway, here I am.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
But for the good women in our lives.
You bet. Absolutely.
Amen. Well, tell us about your first line.
Oh, my God. I checked into the hotel before, and somebody had seen this show. There's nobody in this room that's old enough to. It was called The Doctors. Anybody remember? Don't give your age away. And this was 56 years ago, or 7. It was the oldest running show on television. I had no lines. I was just an orderly. I'd move bedpans around and mime and push people in wheelchairs. You couldn't talk. That was an extra $16. And some wonderful lady wrote in and she said, I would like to head your fan club. I said, that's fine. Help yourself. You might be a little lonely, but that's good. So she wrote voluminous letters to NBC, and they thought they had a rising star on their hands. So they decided to give me a line. The line was a very simple line. Doctor, she has a contusion on her ankle. Well, this was live television. I alerted the family coast to coast, to all friends, and I had it down. I went to the prestigious neighborhood playhouse, and I had 40 different renditions for this line. And finally, on live television, I stepped up to Jim Pritchett, and I went blank, which I didn't want to do. What came out of my mouth was, on live television, Doctor, her left ankle is corroded. I did not have to wait to get fired. The first of many times I've been fired.
Was that your first role?
No.
What was your first role?
Well, that was my first line. My first role, actually, I had come to California. Boy, did I take advantage of opportunities. I was doing a show called Perry Mason with Marianne Mobley. Well, I didn't realize who she was. She happened to have been Miss America. She was very sweet and invited me to go to the Academy Awards. I was driving a garbage truck. I didn't have a tux, and I didn't have much brains, and I didn't go. Anyway, yeah.
You were driving a garbage truck, really?
Literally.
That was your job?
Yes.
Garbage truck driver.
You do what you have to do.
Amen.
You got to get by.
Amen.
Right? I did it well. Anyway, this is
My
not...
father would be very proud.
Really?
He said it many times. I don't care if you're a garbage truck driver. Just be the best garbage truck driver.
Be the best. That's the truth. Anyway, it's actually not the first role. It's the first big role. Remember Ben Casey? Hairy forearms. That was the whole secret to his success. Women loved him. He could never remember his lines. He'd always write it on you. If it was an appendectomy, he'd write it on your stomach. Anyway, I went in for a reading, and in New York, when you make the rounds, you'd put on a blue suit, dark suit. Not in California. There it's flip-flops and sandals and Bermuda shorts and floral T-shirts. And so I changed in the back of the truck, and I fixed myself up. I went in, properly dressed for New York, and I read, and there was an elderly gentleman sitting in the back, and long flowing white hair, and he seemed not to be engaged with anything I was doing. And he was just writing, I thought, going on a script. And okay, I went out. I didn't get the role. A week later, I got called to Gunsmoke in the Valley. And it started the beginning of a very nice relationship. And I was looking for the mob, because wherever I went, there was always 50 other people. There was nobody. And I went into the office. I said, I'm looking for the Gunsmoke. She says, this is the Gunsmoke office. And I said, oh. I said, could I see the sides? That's what you read. And she said, there are no sides. Your role is Kyle, and here's the script. I just wanted to get out of there. It never happened to me before. And she said, Mr. Daniels would like to see you. So Mr. Daniels, it turns out, was the gentleman who was directing it that was sitting in the back of the room and heard me give enough of a good reading. He says, the role's yours, son. Are you at liberty? And I took a long pause. Yes, sir, I think I am. Truck could wait. And he said, okay, we'll be shooting in a week. And I said, all I wanted to do was get out, call my father. He gave up so much to help me. He was a phys ed teacher in Fort Apache in the Bronx. And I started walking. He says, son, by the way. I said, yes, sir. He says, do you ride without breaking stride? I said, like the wind.
Yeah.
Never in my life on a horse except a pony that my old grandmother would pull me around in Central Park. So I thought I'd rent a horse. I always practiced things. I couldn't. The monsoons came. There was no horse. Finally, it's the day of the shoot, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, what am I going to do? Kyle vaults on the horse, gallops into the night. I didn't even know what side to get up on. The rain stopped. There's a semi-trailer truck, and there's a lot of noise going on in there. And I said to one of the cowboys, I said, Wrangler, I said, what's going on there? He says, nothing, kids. The horses, they just want to run. Oh, my God. Okay. Get him up. Time to get up. There's the old man. He set his camera up right in the center. And off that horse went. If you ride, and if you're afraid like I was, they know. Off he went. They kept yelling, pull him around, pull him around. And I did. Every time I'd circle the old man, he'd say, like the wind. And there are many more. I don't want to take any more time.
Fantastic.
Yeah.